Hi, I'm Phil from Inspiration Marine. We're here down at Hamble Point Marina with the new DS48 DS. We've had an interior tour. Time for a tour around outside, so I can flip you around and we'll go and have a look around outside. I'll try and cover the things that are standard and the things that are optional, so you've got a feel for what is standard and what you pay for as an extra, and I hope you enjoy it. So at the back we've got a huge dinghy garage. The dinghy width is about 2.8 meters, so you can get a really good sized dinghy in there. There is a really clever davit arm inside here, so if I just untie this, you'll see that this davit arm swings all the way out and has a winch motor on it, which is either operated from a wireless remote or a wired remote. So the concept is that you tie this line off to a single point lift on the dinghy, winch it up on the motor and swing the dinghy in. There's a video to cover this on the Hansa 510 website, because the garage space and the mechanism is the same. Works really nicely. They use an Italian AER marine dinghy with a 6 horsepower, which slides very neatly into the confines of the dinghy fore and aft and slots into there very neatly, fully inflated. A great way of having a dinghy out of the sun without the need for davits, which really don't work very well when you're stern to moored. So that is a very clever solution. That is an optional extra. You don't get the dinghy davit as standard. The platform is opened and closed using this very clever kind of retractable cassette step arrangement. So that's fixed to the platform, fixed to the underside of the garage. Again, wireless remote or operated from a button up on the helm position. That lifts and lowers the door. It also makes a really good set of steps for accessing the back of the boat. Really nice from an ease of use stern to point of view. And you can also see that the platform, when lowered, is several inches off the water, so that isn't going to get slapped by the water as much as it would if it was flat on the water like some models are. Getting in and out of the water, this boat has the upgraded swim stairs, so they're at a really nice angle when they're lowered in. They have nice big rungs, so getting in and out of the water is very easy. This is an option. The standard ladder is what you'd normally expect. Not that you'd want to go for a swim in the Hamble necessarily, but that is that. And that closes down into this flap in the platform floor here. So let's go aboard and have a look around. We'll start with the helm position and the instrument pod. So you have a 9-inch chart plotter in the middle. We've got this one set up with a mast cam, so you can see what's directly in front of you. We've got electronic throttle. It's a Volvo 150 in this, as opposed to the standard 110 Volvo. And then you also have Sleipner's proportional thrust bow and stern thruster. Now, these are phenomenally powerful, and they also have a hold function. So if you're getting blown off the pontoon, compress plus, they put on about 10% of their thrust, both bow and stern. See the thrust coming out there. We'll just walk up to the bow so I can show you the bow doing the same thing. And that's just pinning us against the pontoon whilst we work out what we're doing with our mooring lines. A fairly useful function, but again, the proportional nature of the thrust of these, you don't have to be on full blast. It's graduated as it goes, and as a pair of thrusters, the bow and stern, it makes a phenomenal difference to how manoeuvrable a boat like this is. Just nipping over to the port side now, you've got the engine and the bow and stern control on both sides, so whichever side you're going to from a mooring point of view, you can choose your helm position to do so. Back at the starboard helm, you've got a Raymarine I-70, which will show you various bits of information. This is the engine page, which will show you fuel flow, engine hours, coolant, RPM. Typical fuel flow from experience is that at about 2000 RPM you're using about 6 litres an hour and doing about 8 knots of boat speed, so a really good range on this boat. And then you just toggle through the pages to show you wind information, depth, speed, course over ground, log, depth is a big graphic, and you can configure those how you like. And then of course on the plotter you get to choose what you want to show, whether it's charting information, autopilot, etc. You have a wireless phone charger, and when your engine is running you have a Yanmar display that will show you RPM, turbo boost, oil pressure, temperature, all the usual stuff. Most things are repeated over here at the port helm. You've got a dedicated autopilot control, but of course it's done from either plotter as well. You have your Fusion stereo remote, and on both sides you've got your switching for your electric winches. This particular one has 2 electric winches, being the ones at the back. The forward ones can be electric. On this boat they're manual. We'll take it for a sail on Friday and video that as well. You've got a switch for your stern door. You've got main furl in and out. It's an electric mainsail furler. You've got genoa in and out, and you've got switching, so I can operate that electric winch from here, and I can operate that electric winch from here, and I can do the same on both sides. Great compass position right in front of the helm. The big things that people want to check out on a Moody deck saloon is what the view is like from the helm, so I'm holding this directly in front of my face. You've got a really nice view down here. You have a certain amount of dead spot through the deck saloon, as you might expect, hence the camera. Or you simply sit down and you get to look through the door and the opening window very easily. So actually there's almost no dead spot at all whilst you're underway. When you're sailing, if you have a little bit of heel on, the coach roof actually tilts out of the way and the view improves even further. So really not a concern. Everything in terms of sail controls for the main jib and genoa are led back to the cockpit. So the aft winches, which are electrified as standard, really nice neat rope bins at the back. Everything for the main and jib are operated from the aft winches. The forward winches tend to be used for the genoa sheets. Again, they can be electric winches if needed. Doesn't make a huge difference, but if you're looking for additional ease of use, then power all 4 winches. Same on the other side, so you operate everything very easily from the helm and or in the cockpit. So if you wanted a nice protected area in order to operate the sail controls, the cockpit's the perfect place for that. And of course the view forward, because of the deck saloon, is fantastic as well. You have fold up helm seats on both sides. You can see that one folded up on that side, same here. So if you have a passerelle, the access of that's very straightforward from there. Also on this one you have a really nice wet bar arrangement at the back. So you've got an electric grill, gas grill, hot and cold sink there, chopping board area, and a 35 litre fridge underneath it, so any kind of cooking and entertaining outside is catered very well. You've got 2 huge cockpit lockers, and I can't tell you how big they are, so I'm just going to open them and show you in there. So not just a huge opening on the space, which I guess it's probably almost 1 metre by 1 metre, so getting things in like folding bikes is zero problem at all. In this configuration there's a full-size washer dryer in there through a grey sump box arrangement. You've got really nicely positioned galvanic isolators, your shore power isolator, things like your autopilot computer, and rather cleverly you've got, that's the stern thruster closing itself, which it does after 6 minutes of not being used. You've got a very well designed and robust steering system from Yeffa, so you've got a direct rod between the reduction gearbox and the directly to the rudder stock. You've got your auto drive motor on this side. You can repeat that on the other side, so if you're doing offshore blue water cruising, which is exactly what this thing's designed for, you can put a second autopilot on there, So if you have an issue with one, you simply switch over to the other one and you've got a redundancy system there as well. Aerials in there, all nice and protected, all nice and high up, huge amount of storage, little ladder to get you in there. So that is the port cockpit locker. Just going over to starboard, very similar as you might expect, arguably slightly larger. So you've got your second steering position there. This particular one doesn't have the second autopilot drive, although it can be fitted if needed. Manual bilge pump, tons of storage space. Behind these two locker doors here, you've got access to the manifold for the air conditioning skin fitting, so that's really easy to get to. And again, everything else that could be vulnerable to things in the locker, ducting, pipework, etc., all mounted up really nice and high to keep it out of the way. So very well done, very well designed. Let's get that closed down. We've got a couple of LED lights in the ceiling and speakers, and then of course you've got the retractable canvas roof. So retracted back, you've got a great bimini to protect from the sun. That pushes all the way forward manually, just slides on runners to open the cockpit up if needed. You've also got access down into your dinghy garage space through that hatch in the floor there. You've got an emergency tiller, so should your steering have an issue one side, which is pretty unlikely considering it's thick rods and very little else connecting it all together, and you have a redundancy with the autopilot and potentially the second autopilot, from a safety point of view, you have to have an emergency tiller, so it has one. Couple of little bits. So regardless of what you do in terms of the rig, you have an adjustable backstay. You've got drinks holders either side. Huge mooring cleats. These are retractable, which I should be able to show you a little bit further forward on the bow, one that isn't being used. And you have your VHF speaker out here as well. One thing that needs pointing out is that the cockpit floor from the helm position all the way up to the bow is all exactly on one level. There isn't a single step. And from a safety point of view, walking up here, having this solid rail here on the right hand side and a full length grab rail at arguably about chest height walking up is such a nice feature in terms of safety, security. You also have a fold down ladder very neatly out of the guard wire for access at the side. That just folds up and closes in that gap. The grey sheet here hung on the guard wire through that turning block is your starboard Genoa sheet, and has great big adjustable pin stop tracks on the tow rail, so that's nicely out of the way as well. And under the floor here, that hatch is space for 2 gas bottles in there. Up on the coach roof, this is an option, but this is 800 watts of solar power. We haven't yet plugged this boat into shore power, and the domestic batteries haven't dropped below 98%. We generally see anything between about 10 and 50 amps of charge at any one point, so that's pretty impressive. Continuing up the side deck, again the solid rail continues all the way up to the bow. You've got outboard shrouds and inboard shrouds, so the gap through the middle is a really nice place to walk. So in this case, this rig is a three spreader electric in-mast furling, so the electric drum's in there. When we were back at the helm, you saw the buttons to operate that, and the out-oar goes to the electric winch on port side. So operating the mainsail couldn't be a great deal easier. Again, furled away, it's a fully battened cruising laminate sail from Quantum. Really nice shape, sets really nicely, low stretch material as well. Just going to head up to the front so I can show you the forestay setup before we continue talking about the rig. So up at the bow, we've got a twin forestay setup. So on the inner forestay is a 95% self-tacking jib. On the outer forestay is 140% reaching sail. Again, in this case, they're both Quantum's cruising laminate tri-radial, really nice upgrade from standard Dacron, and adds a bit more performance and stability to the boat. huge anchor fitting with a big 45 kilo delta on there, and in this case 60 meters of chain. There is an option to put 100 meters of stainless on there if required. So rig wise, you've got those two forestays. The inner one is in a self-tacker, so that's this sheet here, which runs back to this this track on the foredeck. So when you tack, it's a bit like an automatic car. That slides across here and sets on the new tack. The larger Genoa doesn't self-tack because it's 140% and therefore goes past the mast. To tack that, you furl it away, tack the boat and unfurl it on the new tack. That's simply because it can't be pulled through that gap. In terms of wind ranges and wind use, the main and the self-tacker really, if you're sailing above the beam, they're going to come into their own from about 12 knots, 13 knots of wind upwards. Below that, the reacher and the main work beautifully together, and off the wind, the reacher is going to be a better sail, simply because of the shape and the design of it. The halyards are held on these Antel tracks on the mast here, so the Dyneema core here, that holds the sails up, whether it's the main jib or Genoa. And then rather than relying on a bit of rope and a jammer back in the cockpit, these tracks stop in one of these holes, the relevant one in terms of the tension for the sail, and that holds it there and takes the strain off the jammer, takes the strain off the lower spec rope. So once they're set in terms of halyard tension, that should be it. You shouldn't need to adjust those until the sails come down at the end of the season. All of the lines from the mast head under these deck covers and appear back in the cockpit, so that works really well. Up front you have a huge sail locker. To give you a bit of perspective, that's probably 18 inches by about 4 feet and 4 or 5 feet deep, so very realistically all of your fenders are going to go in here. So when you're out and you no longer need your fenders, you will dispatch your crew up front. They can take them all off, just keep walking forward safely because of the guard wires, sling them all in here, and that's your fenders stored away from any dry stuff that you might want to be keeping in your aft cockpit lockers. The other things in here are, this is a leg that goes into this this little thing here in the floor, and then stored really cleverly in the back edge of this the wall of this locker is a nice teak tabletop. So that sits on the top of that leg, and you've got yourself a really nice dinette seating area up at the front. There's a really nice cushion that goes on here with a big thick high backrest. You can imagine being sat there at anchor having a sundowner sat on there. You've got access through to the anchor locker through that hatch there. Because of the design of this, the anchor locker goes down all the way to the floor here, so it's incredibly deep, and even with 60 meters of chain, the highest that stack of chain comes to is below that hatch door. So you're never's a brave word, but you're never going to get the bunching of the chain up under the windlass, because it is a vertical drop off the bottom of the windlass into that super deep locker. So that is that locker. Get that shut down. Here's an opportunity to show you the cleat. So huge cleat, to give you a bit of perspective. That's my hand, and they just lower down when they're not in use. Cosmetically it's quite neat. The real practical purpose of it is that you don't get a lazy sheet caught underneath it when you're underway. The outer furler in this case is electric, the inner furler in this case is manual. You can have them both manual, you can have them both electric, or as it is here. Tons of ventilation, tons of light for the owner's cabin. So you've got a forward facing window in the owner's cabin, that one's fixed, doesn't open. Those two open, and they counter opening to make sure you get some air in there. You've got two more opening hatches for the owner's cabin, one either side. You've got another one here for the forward cabin heads en suite. Another one for the forward cabin. Again, two more shower cubicles, so the aft two are for that. There is a huge amount of ventilation. There's another two opening hatches up on the centre of there, and another two outboard. So yeah, let's get back to the cockpit, see if there's anything I should have shown you that I've forgotten. Last thing would be cockpit tables. So these are your standard cockpit tables. So they are fixed stainless steel legs, rail to put your feet against if needed whilst you're underway, nice high stainless steel rail for holding on to whilst you're underway. Safety is obviously a very serious consideration, especially on a boat like this, which is intended to go further afield and designed to do so, and a nice handrail on the outside. Those teak leaves fold open to make the table twice as big on either side. There is an option on this boat to have tables on a telescopic leg which will lower down to the same height as the cockpit seat on either side. I guess unlikely to be ordered on this design, simply because it's a nice protected cockpit. It isn't really a sunbathing cockpit, it's a blue water cockpit, and I think the fixed legs, the rails to put your feet against, the handrails, they're more suited as standard to this kind of boat. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video. It's 20 odd minutes, I appreciate that. I hope the pace has been good. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. We're going to go out for a sail. This is Wednesday. The plan is to go out for a sail on Friday and video that, so you can get on the water with us. Let us know if you have any comments. Either pop them in the box or send us an email, and really hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.